Good morning. My name is Jay Eden. I do renewables and low carbon energy intelligence. I'm delighted to be joined by Michot Foss, Fellow in Energy and Minerals at Baker Institute, Rice University. Good morning, Michelle. Thanks for joining us. Quickly, could I just get a view on what you think of the conference so far?
Oh, I think it's good. Actually, a lot of ground is getting covered, some new stuff, some old stuff, revisited, but so far,
Okay. Do you
know,
think it's
very
moving
constructive.
Do you believe it's moving in the right direction?
Yes, actually, although it took me a while to get there. So I had to get used to it, I had to get used to the name change.
Okay, so some questions. Do you believe big oil companies are doing enough in the energy transition?
Yes, and the reason is this. The risks and uncertainties are enormous. And there are lots of questions about the full impact of what you would be investing in if you were to start diverting CapEx more aggressively into renewables and other alternative energy opportunities like that. And the reason is this. We're only beginning to learn what kinds of pressures could build on minerals and materials supply chains, and they're very fragile. The geopolitical situation for these is not very good. The tonnages that would be required for all of the scenarios people talk about are very large. And the emissions and energy intensity associated with building the components, batteries, materials extraction and processing itself, building all of the wind and solar components, solar and PV, all of those are very energy intense, materials intense, and emissions intense. So what we don't want to do is go out of the business, the core businesses for the large oil companies, and then create something that actually doesn't look better. So I think they're being properly cautious and judicious. The problem is, of course, conveying that, communicating that to the public.
That's a very good point. If I could bring you to the big US commodity, obviously we heard this morning that US LNG started to take off in 2016 and now the third biggest exporter of LNG. Do you think that LNG in general can have a low enough carbon footprint to make a difference in the energy transition?
So relative to what I just told you, absolutely. This is why people want to keep gas in the mix as long as they can, because what we know is moving away towards things that are more materials intense, more energy intense, and more emissions intense are a problem. LNG is methane. There's a lot of stuff going on to control methane to make sure that it's not coming into the environment in a way out of the LNG value chain that we don't want. It's a commodity, it's got value, so the last thing everybody wants is to actually lose methane, right? So the industry is doing everything it can do. This includes addressing problems upstream, across pipeline infrastructure, compressor stations, all of those kinds of things. And then the ships themselves, which always have had kind of a really great record because you can use LNG to help power the carrier, which is very attractive.
Yeah. Okay, and then finally, we've had quite a lot of climate activism in Europe recently. We've had the Extinction Rebellion. Even at this conference, we've had the noises outside. Could you give me what the perspective is in the US? We were speaking earlier, and you said that it's a multi-generational thing now. It's not just young people. Could you elaborate a bit on that for me?
Well, so my observation of what's been going on in London this week is that it looks like most of the protesters are not in the younger demographic. They seem to be in the older demographic, and I have a lot of ideas about why that may be given the situation in the UK these days and other things that are going on in Europe in general. And we do see some mix in the US. First of all, on the whole, even in our election cycle, even with all of the stuff that's going on around campaigning, and it's only going to get more intense. So we're seeing a higher level of activism and interest associated with that. But in typical fashion in the United States, it doesn't stay around. It dies off. I was looking at some public opinion data the other day. Long-term Gallup organization polling of how Americans feel about different issues, how high in priority they are. And views on energy, environment, climate are amazingly consistent. quarter after quarter, year after year, it's rare to get more than, say, 5 to 7% of the Americans' polity to put them up in any higher importance. It's a very low level compared to economic development, jobs, healthcare, education. The big ticket items always are higher up.
So why do you think that it's become a bit of a political bargaining chip in the US in the election run?
Because people are trying to differentiate themselves and play to their core constituencies. That includes, the kinds of proposals that are rolling around to move more aggressively on alternative energy and other things. Although we've been learning that a lot of those proposals really don't relate to energy and don't relate to climate, but really relate to retooling the economy, which is what I also think y'all are experiencing here. So we have to be careful, I believe, about when we look at how the public views things. Some portion of the public obviously is going to be concerned and operating on the basis of views about environmental quality and environmental issues and all of that. But a lot of people are motivated by a lot of other reasons. And so I think it's really, really important to understand what's driving activism.
Thank you very much for your time. Really nice to speak to you today. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.